I'm going to tell you why the second coming is not future to us. The most common belief in biblical worldview is Christ will return in our future in an apocalyptic second coming. This belief is based on a plethora of assumptions, theories, and interpretations in various conceptions of a tribulation and a millennium. However, the purely historical version of the return of Christ, based on documented history, is missing. The purely historical second coming, based on known history, deserves to be brought into the light. Let's take a look. The best synopsis of events leading to the second coming is spoken by Jesus to his disciples when they asked him about the coming destruction of the temple buildings, the sign of his coming, and the end of the age. All details can be divided into 4 consecutive parts. The 4 consecutive parts are the time of distress, the temple will be torn down, the signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and the second coming. All details are found in Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21. The historical second coming is fairly simple and straightforward. Number 1, the time of distress described by Jesus perfectly matches the historical record leading up to and throughout the Jewish wars, which ended with the capture of Masada in the year 73. That time of distress was predicted by Jesus 40 years earlier. Second, in the year 30, when Jesus and the disciples were looking at the temple and the temple buildings, Jesus said, "Do you see all these things? Not one stone will be left upon another, and everyone would be torn down." 40 years later, that very temple was thrown down, and not one stone was left on another. The temple was thrown down in AD 70, and was the same temple Jesus said would be thrown down 40 years earlier. The signal to flee Judea was when they saw Jerusalem surrounded by armies. Those who recognized the signal fled at that time and saved themselves from the desolation that was about to take place. Immediately after those days following the distress were signs in the sun, moon, and stars. At that time, they would see the Son of Man coming in the clouds. Anyone who reads the 3 versions of this in Matthew, Mark, and Luke will find no allusion to some magical time machine that propels a second coming into the distant future. Jesus was speaking face to face with his disciples. Each detail methodically flows to the next event without interruption. The destruction of the temple takes place in the midst of the time of distress. Immediately following that distress would be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. At that time, they would see the Son of Man coming in the clouds. Those are the words of Jesus. The words immediately following that distress and at that time were the exact words of Jesus, and they do not leave any room for time warps propelling the next event into the distant future. Everything is in close and immediate succession. There is no time machine that propels the successive event into a distant future. That does not exist. The words immediately following that distress and at that time preclude any time warp between events. Only a vivid imagination can create thousands of years between events. Any idea of a time warp propelling the next event thousands of years into the future is a product of popular theory. Jesus could not be more clear in his intent. The second coming was shortly after the time of distress. The second coming is not future to us today. It was future to them 2,000 years ago and past to us. It had occurred shortly after the time of distress, and the time of distress ended shortly after the Jewish wars. So where do we go from here? We follow the trail of clues. If everything falls in place, you have a case. Everything does fall in place. Shortly after the time of distress, they saw the signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and at that time they saw the Son of Man coming in the clouds. My book, Prophecy Paradox, The Case for a First Century End Time, provides all the details that make a solid case. The second coming is not future to us. It was in their future and our past. You can find it at Amazon in the link below.